You've probably stared at your physiology notes thinking, how am I supposed to connect all this together? The cardiac cycle, the endocrine axes, renal regulation. It all feels like disconnected facts floating in space. But here's what you're probably missing. Your brain doesn't store information as lists, it stores information as networks. In the next few minutes, I'm gonna show you 3 research-backed methods for creating mind maps that actually work. Like not just pretty diagrams, but tools that can help you understand and remember complex physiology. Let's start with the method that reduces overwhelm. So let's say you're facing something like the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or RAS. Your first instinct might be to start writing everything down, but that's backwards. Instead, you want to start with structure. You begin with one central node right in the middle of your page, and then you create only 4 to 8 primary branches radiating out from that center. Not 20 branches, not every detail that you know, just the major categories. Each branch becomes a chunk, a digestible unit your brain can actually process. This matters because your working memory can only hold about 4 chunks of information at once. When you try to memorize everything as one massive list, you're overwhelming that system. But when you organize information into clear hierarchies, you're working with your brain's natural architecture, not against it. Think about it like organizing a city. You don't memorize every building's address, you learn the neighborhoods first, and the major streets, and the specific locations within those areas. Your brain already automatically does this with spatial information. Mind mapping just applies that same principle to physiology. Under each primary branch, you add sub-branches with keywords. Not sentences, just the essential terms. Each keyword is a hook that your brain can grab onto. The reason this is powerful is because when you build your map this way, you're not just taking notes, you're actively deciding what's important, what connects to what, and how the system flows. That decision-making process, that's what creates understanding. Research shows that students who use hierarchical organization like this report lower cognitive load and better comprehension than those using traditional linear notes. You're essentially creating a visual scaffold that holds the information in place. So when you're studying a complex system, like the cardiac cycle, endocrine axes, or nephron function, you want to start with the structure first. Identify the major components. You want to build the skeleton and then add the details after. Okay, so let's now talk about making your maps memorable, because structure alone isn't enough. You need memory hooks, and this is where dual coding comes in. Your brain has 2 separate processing systems, one for verbal information and one for visual information. When you engage both systems at once, you create stronger, more durable memories. Once you've built your structured map, you then add simple visual elements. So not complex artwork, we're talking simple icons, colors, shapes, or even just some small doodles, like a tiny kidney, a lung, or just an upward arrow. You could color code your branches, like blue for triggers, red for effects, and green for pathway itself. But remember, these visual cues aren't artwork, or they're just not for decoration, right? They are there for a reason. They're retrieval anchors. When you're trying to recall the RAS pathway during an exam, you might remember the kidney icon was on the left, the lung was in the middle, and that spatial memory triggers the verbal memory. Studies show that combining words with visuals create stronger memory traces because you're encoding information twice, once verbally and once visually. Even the spatial layout of your map becomes a memory cue. Your hippocampus is especially good at spatial relationships. By spreading information across a page with intentional placement, you're tapping into your brain's natural strength in remembering where things are. But you need to keep the visuals simple. You don't want to waste like an hour trying to make everything perfect. You're just wasting time on style instead of substance. Research consistently shows that multimodal learning, which is when you engage multiple senses and processing systems, produces way better retention than just a single mode studying. So structure gives you organization, and visuals give you memory hooks. Now, one thing that makes this whole process easier is starting with well-organized source material. If you're scouring dense textbooks or scattered lecture notes, you're adding another layer of work before you even start mapping. That's actually why we structure our Kenhub articles the way we do. We break down complex systems into clear, logical sections that make it easier for you to identify those main branches and sub-branches. It's designed to work with your brain's natural learning process, not against it. But there's one more thing that turns your mind map into something really, truly special. You see, here's the thing. Most students stop too early. They create a beautiful mind map, review it a couple times, and they think they're done. But creating the map is just the first step. The real learning happens when you try to reconstruct it purely from memory. So all you got to do is you make the mind map and then you put it away. Like I'm talking like this, put it in a corner, out of sight, out of mind, and then you want to try to build it back completely or as best you can from memory. Start with the central concept. Then try to remember the main branches. Were there 4? 5? What were they called? Then the sub-branches under each one. You're going to quickly discover what parts you're doing great at and what parts you're doing not so great at. And that's not really a problem. I don't want you to think that's a failure. That's just telling you exactly where you need to study. Now, this technique is firmly grounded in one of the most robust findings in all of learning science, and that is active recall. When you force your brain to pull information out of memory, you strengthen that memory pathway way more than when you simply review notes. Studies comparing active recall to elaborative studying, which is where you ask a lot of why questions, consistently shows that active recall is better for long-term retention. So after your first attempt to redraw it, compare it with your original. Where did you miss connections? What did you forget? What did you remember incorrectly? Then refine your map based on what you learned. Maybe you need to reorganize a section to make it clearer. Maybe you need to add a visual cue to help remember a tricky detail. Then a day or two later, do it again. Blank page, redraw it. Each iteration strengthens your understanding and reveals whether you're building genuine knowledge or just recognition. Combine this with our other 2 methods and you're unstoppable. Structure, visuals, and active recall. That's the whole system. If you want to learn more about mind maps, be sure to check out this 100% free Kenhub article. It's structured perfectly for pulling out the key concepts and relationships you need. The link is in the description below. Thanks for learning with me, and I will see you in the next one.